On May 11th, 2017, a 16-year-old girl, Margot Kim, went missing. After a late night study session, she never came home. Didn't show up at school the next day. Nobody could get in contact with her. And her family began to assume the worst. What happened to Margot? If you want to find out, you can watch the movie Searching in theaters now. Fellow Toastmasters, has anybody heard of this movie? Only one person. Okay, have you seen it?
No.
Okay, I'm going to tell you all about it. It's in theaters now. It stars John Cho as the missing girl's father and Deborah Messing as the police detective assigned to the case. And to be clear, it's not based on a true story, but it is presented in a very realistic manner. Critics love this movie. It has a 92% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes, and I saw it a couple weeks ago. I was floored by how good it was. So today I'll share with you 3 reasons why you need to see this movie. The first reason is because of its unique visual style. This entire movie is presented through computer screens. I'll show you what I mean. This is a typical scene from the movie. You see the actor, the father, through his webcam, and then you see everything else that he's doing on his computer to try to find his daughter. Looking at her Facebook page, opening up emails, typing in Google searches. And you actually feel like you're seeing everything through his eyes. You're seeing everything that he does in real time. It's a completely new perspective on what a movie can look like. Now, first I was a little worried about this, that this would feel kind of artificial and cold. But the reality is we spend so much of our lives on screens these days that this actually felt very natural. I felt like I was in the movie. Plus the director throws a lot of nice cinematic touches in. There's a musical score through the whole thing. He moves the camera around and zooms in on little details to emphasize them. So it didn't just feel like a day at the office. It really feels like you're watching a movie. Another concern I had was that this was just lazy filmmaking. I mean, how hard is it to make a movie if you're just going to take a screen capture of everything on your computer desktop? But then I learned how they actually made this movie, which is that everything you see here has actually been drawn from scratch. This isn't really Facebook. It's a drawing to look like Facebook. Let me show you what that entails. Yeah, so there's actually a time-lapse video that the producers posted that shows all of the work that went into making a single scene from the movie. Every desktop window, every chat message is drawn from scratch. Even the mouse, when you see it moving across the screen, isn't really a mouse. It's a drawing that they had to animate to follow that path. The reality is this movie took 2 years to make. It was a small team of people with very little budget, locked in a computer editing room for 2 years. So why did they do it this way? It took a ton of work, but it gave them complete control over every detail that you see on the screen. And their execution was flawless. As you can see, it looks completely real. But by controlling every detail, it allowed them to hide a lot of interesting information in the background. So if we go back to a shot from the movie, here's another one. When you're watching the movie, you're mostly just watching these 2 characters talking through their FaceTime chat, but if you kind of stop and look at everything else, you start to pick up on things in the chat history, in the YouTube suggested videos for the father. You start to learn little details about their personality, about their state of mind, about their past relationships, and you get these subtle clues and foreshadowing about things that are going to happen later in the movie. So for me, it almost turned into this game where I was trying to see how many of these little Easter eggs I could spot. In fact, I was so into it, I actually decided to see the movie a second time, just to see how many of these hidden messages I could find without being distracted by the story. And the first time I went to see it with my wife, she didn't really want to see it a second time. She wasn't as obsessed as I was. So I just went by myself to a late night screening, which I felt a little self-conscious about. There were all these other couples on dates there, and then there was me by myself. And actually, I knew I wanted to try to remember everything, so I showed up at the theater with a notepad and a pen. Which made it feel super awkward. I think I just needed a long, dark trench coat to take a picture. But you know, it just goes to show how much I really enjoyed this movie. I didn't care. I wanted to see it. I wanted to get into it. So that's the first reason you should watch this movie, because of its unique visual presentation. The second reason is because of the story. Now at its core, this story is about the relationship between a father and his daughter. And they open the movie with a 5-minute montage where it's just the dad clicking through a bunch of old photos and videos. You get to see their entire family history unfold. The good times, the sad times, the funny moments. you get to see it all. And it's so uplifting and so touching. By the end of this montage, my wife turned to me with tears in her eyes and she said, "Are you crying too?" And I had to be like, no, just allergies, I'm good. I mean, I couldn't believe how connected I felt to the characters in this movie. The other thing about the story, it's not just emotional, it's also really thrilling. I mean, this movie is a mystery. The father's trying to track down his daughter. He's uncovering clues, coming up with theories. You think it's going to be one thing, it turns out to be something else. Maybe that's the father calling down. Looking for Margot's not here. So it really takes you on this roller coaster ride. There were a couple of big reveals where I was just, like, my jaw dropped. Like, what just happened? And I'm not going to spoil them here, but just let you know that it is this total thrill ride, while at the same time being very emotional and relatable. So I thought it was a good mix. The third reason you should watch this movie is because of the commentary that it makes on modern technology. Now, it presents a pretty unbiased view. It shows us, first of all, it's very realistic in the depiction of technology, and it shows us the bad side, how social media can kind of separate us from the people around us, create very superficial relationships, but it also shows the good side, how these tools are very useful at digging up information and can connect us with people that we can't see in person. So I think the profundity there is that technology is not inherently good or bad, but it is definitely a necessary part of our modern lives. In summary, you need to see this movie, number one, because of the unique visual style that it uses. Number two, because the story is so engaging. And number three, because of the commentary that it makes about technology today. I like this movie so much that I've already seen it twice. Hopefully I've at least convinced you to see it once so that you don't miss out on a terrific film.